All right, so I just ate a bunch of bugs.
Pretty good, huh?
It's not bad. We looked at meat made from plant protein, but what about the plants themselves?
That's what I was wondering. What's their future like?
Yeah, great minds think alike.
Okay, you asked me to predict the future. So what we're seeing now is a climate change issue that's severely affecting agriculture outdoors. We're seeing urbanization like crazy, and we're seeing an increase in human populations. You put those three things together and you've got another, I hate to use this cliche because everybody's using it now, but it's a perfect storm for disaster.
This is Dixon Despalmier, emeritus professor at Columbia University. He helped develop and popularize the concept of the vertical farm.
What's that?
We'll get to that. But before all that, he taught a class on medical ecology.
So here's an idea that arose in this class. The idea was the students got tired of hearing about gloom and doom, which I don't blame them, and they said, we would like to start thinking more positively. So they came back and said, we think rooftop gardening in New York City might be a good idea to see if we can feed some people this way and maybe turn some of this heat bubble around and that sort of thing. So that's a great idea.
The students started looking at how much rooftop space Manhattan had available for farming. Then they had to figure out what to grow to feed all 2.3 million of its inhabitants.
The most energetic crop that you can possibly eat in one bite is rice.
Then they calculated how much rice they could grow on the rooftops of Manhattan.
And with the amount of land that they had, with a single crop per year, they ended up being able to feed 2%. In their view, it was a failure.
Yeah.
They said, you had a good idea. This was the right idea. It just didn't go far enough. I said, why don't we take the idea of the rooftop garden and put it inside the building? And that was, everybody's light bulb went on, including mine. So we didn't have a name for it yet, but this was in 1999. By 2010, the idea was known as the vertical farm.
Okay, I'm gonna make an educated guess and say that vertical farms are just like regular farms, except the crops are grown on candy-colored clouds, and all the farmers are specially trained hot air balloon pilots. Because that's what I'm picturing, and I want it to be real so bad.
Wow.
I'm wrong, aren't I?
Way off.
Well, what do they look like then?
Well.
Hands inside, we're going up.
Okay.
In a vertical farm, you always gotta watch out for your head.
Yeah. Whoa. I went over to Portage, Indiana to check out Green Sense Farms, one of the world's largest commercial vertical farms, to gain a higher perspective and to find out if vertical farming really is the future of agriculture. What kind of lights are these? They look like Christmas.
These are produced by Philips, the large electronic company out of the Netherlands. They're our partner. And if you look underneath, you can see that it's made up of a series of red and blue diodes. What Philips has found is that you don't need the whole spectrum of light to have photosynthesis. The plants photosynthesize best with that red and blue light spectrum, and because of that, they use a lot less energy. You're not pumping all that energy in to produce that whole spectrum. They burn cool, and they're very efficient. As you can see under these LED lights, our produce looks brownish or discolored, but it isn't. It's really quite vibrant and green. And when you bring it out into the ambient white light, you can see how fresh and green.
Yeah.
Most people don't eat fresh lettuce because it comes from California and takes 3 to 5 days to get to the store. This is our whole lettuce tower. And the way we plant this is we plant it specifically to a custom order. So a customer will come in, place an order, tell us when they want these to be harvested, and then every week after the first growth cycle, this crop comes right. So if you look up in here, you'll see plants at different stages of development.
What's the advantage of using a vertical farm as opposed to just a regular farm?
Well, the obvious is a horizontal farm only gets one level. Here you can see we can grow up. So we get much more density per square foot than you do in a field farm. Second, we can harvest daily here. We get about 26 harvests per tub, where a field farm will only get you maybe 1, 2, or 3. Also, a field farm, you could lose your whole crop if you have drought or you have inclement weather.
Being in a climate-controlled environment gives vertical farms the advantage of being safe from pests, eliminating the need for pesticides. And unlike traditional farms, vertical farms can also be harvested year-round, even in cold climates.
You could always use that cold air to help in your cooling of your room. The cold climates keep the bugs out, and it also helps in your savings of your energy costs.
It's sort of the opposite of traditional farming. You want the cold, you want the winter as opposed to the summer.
The cold's our friend. When nobody else is growing, that's when we're at peak capacity.
Yeah.
We're all about climate control, creating that perfect atmosphere and climate in this grew room 365 days a year. This air rotation unit's a big part of that. The ambient air gets flows through these filters, up these fans, and then it gets treated with temperature and humidity controls. so that it's always the perfect temperature and humidity here.
The air is also sterilized with ultraviolet radiation to remove harmful microbes, and then enriched with a little extra carbon dioxide to speed up the plant growth process.
It blows out the top, and then it just circulates throughout the room.
Recirculating and purifying the air is good for the plants, but it's also good for humans. According to the CDC, over half of all foodborne illnesses come from plants, and more illnesses were associated with leafy greens than any other commodity. Vertical farms could potentially reduce the amount of foodborne illnesses and save lives. Another advantage of vertical farms is water consumption. Agriculture consumes around 70% of the world's water supply.
70. And then what happens to it after you farm? It runs off. And can you drink that water? You better not. Ecology is a very economical way of behaving. Okay, if you look at the way a hardwood forest recycles its nutrients, if you look at the way it handles water and micronutrients and minerals and things of this sort, the economy is remarkable when you reveal it. So, wow, why don't we do that? So, because we don't know how to do that.
Many of these things don't exist. We have to fabricate them ourselves. We've designed these systems to conserve water. Water is pumped in, and then it gravity drains, and then it's recirculated, and it's calibrated so it always has the right pH, electric conductivity, and the right percentage of nutrients. Most other farming operations don't do that. So just on the logic of our process, this is much more economical, and it's much more sustainable. You could pretty much grow anything in an indoor vertical farm, but there's only a few things you can grow commercially and economically viably today. But you also have to understand this farm is specially engineered. It's like a Ferrari race car. It is designed specifically to optimize the growth of leafy greens. If we go off into another direction, we would have to redesign our entire farm. So with time, we'll be able to grow more produce. But as of right now, we're focused on plants. I think the future is plant protein, because as the population grows, you're gonna have to be able to grow that protein.
What have you discovered that you didn't know before when you started doing this?
Well, the best way for us to solve world hunger is to make a profitable farm. And that's what I've learned a long time ago in the environmental business. People have many great ideas, but it's hard to turn them into reality. The world speaks in finance. Everybody understands that language. So for us to make this a profitable farm, we can really change the world.
So that's what is really interesting to me for this playlist we're doing. It's about future of food, and we want to know, what is the future of food? Is this the future? Vertical farms?
I think it's part of the future. I think you're starting to find farming is stratifying. Much like the automobile, 20 years ago, cars just ran off gas. Now look, you have hydrogen, you have plug-in electrics, you have hybrids, diesel, high mile per gallon gas. Field farms are great for commodity crops like soybean and corn and wheat. Greenhouses are fantastic for growing tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, and we think the future for leafy greens is indoor vertical farms. I think people will grow more sustainably. They'll learn how to conserve water. They'll learn how to use a lot less chemicals in growing their produce, and they're going to learn how to package it so it's much fresher. The consumer is getting much more educated on where their food comes from and the importance of eating healthy.
That is very fresh. That is really good.
So the future is really bright, and it's going to change very rapidly. At the end of the day, we all live on the same earth. We have to work together. It's not us against them. It's all of us working together to try to figure out how to grow food better, more nutritious, with less impact on the environment.
So what do you guys think? Is vertical farming the future of agriculture, just a piece of it, or a complete waste of time and energy?
Also, if there are any traditional horizontal farmers out there, we're particularly interested in your opinion on this vertical farming thing. Do you think it's just a fad? Let us know in the comments.
Next week, we talk to urban farming pioneer Ken Dunn. Turns out, the future of food might be a return to old ideas. See you next week. Bye. I didn't know we were going to wave. Last week, we asked if you would consider including bugs as a regular part of your diet.
Here's what you had to say.
Charlie Ringstrom and a number of you want to know where to buy insects. Well, chapulines, which were in the delicious tacos that we ate, can be found at Mexican grocery stores. And crickets, waxworms, and mealworms are often sold as pet food or bait and can be found at pet stores. You can also raise crickets yourself. The trick, though, for maximum deliciousness is gut loading, also my major in college. There's helpful links to all of this in the doobly-doo of our insects video.
Dan Brown pointed out that bugs will need to be more thoroughly processed before people are willing to eat them as more than a novelty. Fortunately, there's already a solution: cricket flour, which is available online and possibly some grocery stores. Cricket flour is basically milled up dry roasted crickets, which can be used in a variety of foods like cookies or pancakes or whatever. It's high in protein, gluten-free, and you can pretend it's not made of crickets. Yum!
S. Sario and Giovanni FM 1984 say they'll just stick to getting their protein from veggies, beans, and cereals, thank you very much. No one's telling you have to eat bugs. However, from an environmentally sustainable perspective, bugs are a very efficient source of protein, even better than a lot of plants. Crickets actually grow faster and require a lot less land and water than soybeans, and nuts require a ton of water. And I'm allergic to nuts. Food for thought.
Waiting for 2008 asked how common bug allergies are. Insects, including mealworms and waxworms, are arthropods, just like crabs and lobsters, so if you have an allergy to shellfish, there's a good chance you have an allergy to bugs as well. So if you're concerned about having a negative reaction, you should consult a doctor or do some research before chowing down on some bugs. But if you don't have an allergy to shellfish, you're probably okay.
Lover of Bernie Sanders writes that when they were a kid, they saw an ant and they just ate it for some reason, and then later realized that it tasted just like the red berries in Special K cereal. You just gave me an idea, General Mills, are you listening? Cricket puffs? It could help kids get over the cultural aversion to bugs, and it could make us a lot of money. Thanks for the great questions. Keep them coming. See you next week.